And we're back with the fourth segment of the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this segment, we're going to be recapping all of the games that took place over the weekend in the NFL. I'm going to do it a little bit quick just because we are running a little bit low on time. And usually I would do this for a lot longer, but, unfortunately I did get held up in a meeting. So I really apologize for that. But let's dive right in and get into this segment. We're going to start with the Jets and their game against Miami. This game was a pretty solid game. They ended up going into overtime with the score tied 26-26. This was the first game in Aaron Rodgers' career as a Jet where he ended up recording 300 or more passing yards. So he had 339 passing yards in this game and 1 touchdown. It was very good. Garrett Wilson played very well in this game, and so did Davante Adams. Garrett Wilson ended with 114 receiving yards, and Davante Adams ended with 109 receiving yards and a touchdown. Excuse me. Now, obviously, this wasn't enough to go up against the Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins, they are pushing themselves to try and make it to the playoffs now that they have Tua Tagovailoa. Tua ended up recording 331 passing yards of the day, and also recorded 2 touchdowns. And there was also Devon, excuse me, Jesus Christ, I cannot pronounce that last name. Devon Achane, who ended up recording 1 touchdown, but only 24 rushing yards. It wasn't a really good rushing day for the Dolphins, but nevertheless, it was a great passing day, especially for Tyreek Hill, who ended up recording 115 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. I believe this was the first good game that Tyreek Hill has had in a very, very, very long time. And this game ultimately ended up being decided by who got the ball first, and the answer was the Dolphins. The Dolphins quickly responded in overtime with a touchdown. Aaron Rodgers never got to see the ball, and the Dolphins ended up winning. Much like Aaron Rodgers throughout most of his career, he leads the team on a game-winning or game-tying drive, and his team would let him down with the game in the balance. I mean, this loss, it wasn't on Aaron Rodgers. It was on the defense for allowing them to score in overtime, as well as allowing them to kick a field goal to tie the game and actually give them a chance to even play in overtime. I will say that, the Dolphins, they are fighting for a playoff spot, so it's not like they are a bad team. But again, this defense and this Jets team is absolutely awful. Now, with this loss, the Jets have been eliminated from the postseason for the 14th straight year, I believe. And this is the longest active streak of not being able to make the playoffs for an NFL team. And it's not good. It's really not looking good in New York. And speaking of New York, I might as well bring up the other team, the Giants. They ended up losing to the Saints 14-11. This game was absolutely awful. Drew Lock threw 1 interception, 227 passing yards. There was absolutely nothing going for us on the ground. The Saints had, with Derek Carr, he threw a touchdown and he also threw an interception, but it doesn't matter. You're going up against the Giants, and it also should be noted that the Giants, they ended up losing because the field goal was blocked, and Shador, you are a New York Giant. That's really all that I can say. It's either Shador or Cam Ward. One of those quarterbacks is going to be the future for the New York Giants. And, I mean, the Giants are 2-11, and this game was really, I knew that the Giants were going to lose in this game. Everyone knew that the Giants were going to lose in this game because that's just what they do. And speaking of former Giants, the Saquon Barkley, of course, he ends up winning in this matchup against the Panthers with the Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he played all right, 108 passing yards. He did throw for 2 passing touchdowns, and he also ended up running in for a touchdown, but obviously Saquon Barkley ended with 124 rushing yards and was the best player for the Eagles in this matchup. Now, I will say, Bryce Young, he almost ended up winning this game for the Panthers. He did throw an interception, but he did also throw a touchdown. Chuba Hubbard ran for a touchdown and ran for 92 yards, but he almost led the team on a game-winning drive at the very end of the game. But there was a touchdown pass that he threw, which ended up getting called back because it was ruled as an incomplete pass. And again, he was very close to driving the ball down the field over 90-plus yards. So very, very impressive stuff coming in from Bryce Young. But again, the Eagles, they improved their record to 11-2, and I believe right now they are one game away from making it to the top spot in the entirety of the NFC. I mean, they just have to get past the Lions, which it doesn't really seem like the Lions are really going to be slowing down all that much. And another former New York player, Sam Darnold for the Vikings, played phenomenally in this game. The Vikings, they ended up beating the Falcons 42-21. Sam Darnold threw for 5 touchdowns, 347 passing yards in this game. And the receiving duo of Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson were phenomenal. Jordan Addison ended with 133 receiving yards, and Jefferson ended with 132 receiving yards. And similar to how there was a 1-yard difference between these two receivers, there was also a 1 touchdown difference between these two receivers. Jordan Addison got 3 receiving touchdowns, and Jefferson got 2 receiving touchdowns. Overall, fantastic game from the Vikings. Kirk Cousins has been playing absolutely awful with the Falcons so far. And after having a ridiculous 500-yard passing game in the season, Kirk Cousins, I mean, he's sort of on the decline right now. He threw for 344 yards, but he also threw 2 interceptions, and he didn't throw a single touchdown in this game. And all the touchdowns for the Falcons ended up coming on the ground, and it's not really looking good for the Falcons. I will say this is this is supposed to happen when you have Kirk Cousins. I don't know what it is, but now in the next game, Kirk Cousins is going to play like he's Peyton Manning because his team is under 500. So I would not be surprised that the Falcons end up winning the next game that they have in this coming week. But this was a very bad loss for the Falcons. A very good win for Sam Darnold and the Vikings. And more games to talk about. Hold on just one second. Let me go through them. The Steelers, they ended up beating the Browns. They ended up winning 27-14 in this matchup. And Russell Wilson ended up recording 158 passing yards. He did throw for 2 touchdowns. Najee Harris ended up running in for a touchdown as well. And when you're the Browns, you have Jameis Winston. So, of course, you're going to have some good and some bad. 2 passing touchdowns, but also 2 interceptions in this game. And those 2 interceptions ended up costing him. The Raiders, they're also in a fight to try and draft Shedeur Sanders. They're in a fight between the Giants. Baker Mayfield ended up playing, all right. 3 passing touchdowns, 95 yards, and 2 interceptions in this game. And on the Raiders side, they don't really have that good of a quarterback right now, which is why they're hoping they can draft Shedeur. So they flip-flop between 2 really less than mediocre quarterbacks in Aiden O'Connell and Desmond Ridder. Aiden O'Connell threw an interception, and Desmond Ridder, he didn't really do much in this game. So not really any noteworthy things to talk about in this one. The Seahawks, they did beat the Cardinals, and they now lead their division. They won 30-18. I don't know what's going on. I think Kyler Murray is playing a little bit too much Warzone, and I don't really blame him. He threw for 259 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And that was really, the killer, the fact that he threw those 2 interceptions. Now, Geno Smith ended up completing 24 of the 30 passes that he threw for 1 touchdown. Now, I also completely forgot to mention this, but Sam Darnold almost had as many touchdowns, 5, as incompletions, 6, which is fantastic. And for the Seahawks, Zach Charbonnet, forgive me if I messed up that last name, ended up rushing for 2 touchdowns and recording 134 yards on the ground. So, overall, very high-scoring games in this week. The Niners, they ended up beating the Bears 38-13. It's the Bears, so I don't have to say all that much. Brock Purdy played pretty solid, 325 passing yards and 2 touchdowns in this game. And there was also, of course, they had a ridiculous running back, Isaac Guerrero, who ended up recording 2 rushing touchdowns on the night. And there was also Patrick Taylor Jr., who ended up recording 1 touchdown on the night for San Fran as well. And on the Bears side, they just continue finding more ways to lose. Now, the Chiefs, this one was a really big game because a lot of people, they are very, very confident now that the Chiefs are one of the luckiest teams in the NFL. And, and they have this weird magic power where it's like they are able to win. They're able to win games when it seems like they play some of the worst football ever imaginable. And the way that they won this game was off of a game-winning field goal. Now, this field goal looked like it was going to miss, but it was doinked in, and it made it. Like, it was doinked, it got doinked from the left side, and it was able to scoot into the right side and make the field goal, right? Like, it was a very, very close field goal, and it ultimately ended up winning the game for the Chiefs. They ended up winning 19-17. Patrick Mahomes threw for 210 passing yards and one touchdown. And for the Chargers, Justin Herbert ended with 213 passing yards and one touchdown. And then there was also Gus Edwards, who ended with a rushing touchdown on the ground. So those were all the games. The Bengals, they're going to play the Cowboys in this matchup. I expect the Bengals to easily beat the Cowboys. Funny stat, over the weekend, Arizona ended up recording more touchdowns in Arizona State, the college that ended up making the college football playoffs. They ended up recording more touchdowns in the Cowboy Stadium in that one game than the Cowboys did in their entire season so far. So that's a little bit funny, very hilarious. So I think that the Bengals are going to end up winning in this matchup against the Cowboys easily. But we'll see how that game goes. Again, that game is going to happen at 8:15 on ESPN, so be sure to tune into that. And with this out of the way, that's the end of the fourth segment. So now we're going to go into the special fifth segment where I look at the NBA's power rankings. So I'll be right back after this short break. Be sure to stay tuned.